Have you ever thought about becoming a farmer or wondered how does someone become a farmer? Well, the path isn't always straight, and it's not necessarily going to university and getting an agriculture degree. There can be a lot of different ways that people find their path to becoming a farmer. Mark Congdon found himself inspired through the work that he was doing while he was working at a cafe. He was in charge of sourcing all the food that came in to prepare the delicious and nutritious and yummy meals that they were serving their patrons. And he was finding a disconnect between some of the food that was coming in that was grown unsustainably and some of the food that was coming in that was grown more locally, regeneratively, and organically. And as he dug deeper, he learned about the nutritional differences between food that's grown through big ag and grown with regenerative organic practices. And this lit a fire inside of him to become part of the solution of growing healthy food, to becoming a farmer. And there he went on a path to volunteer at farms, become an apprentice, and now he works for the past 8 years with Saltbox Farms. He's an amazing human. He shares his tips for new farmers, what's worked for him, what has been difficult. He shares his path to success, and he talks about what regenerative farming and agriculture means to him and how we can move forward together in this conversation. He shares his deepest pains as a farmer and his greatest joys as a farmer. I'm Natalie Forstbauer, founder and editor-in-chief of Heart and Soul magazine. I'm really excited to bring this conversation to you. And if you haven't subscribed to Heart and Soul magazine yet, head on over to heartandsoulmagazine.com and you can grab your subscription there. And if you want a free issue, just sign up for a newsletter and you'll get a free issue and you can check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. Make yourself an amazing day and enjoy the conversation with Mark. And oh, one more thing, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video because it helps it be seen and it helps amplify the global conversation for regeneration and planetary health. Big love. Make yourself an amazing day. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, it's my honor. So tell us where you're joining us from.
So I'm in Concord, Massachusetts, currently in our fields here on the farm called Saltbox Farm. It's a family farm and also a farm to table farm where the owner, Chef Ben Elliott, inherited the farm from his grandfather and restored it to where it is now. This is my 8th season here helping on that venture. And yeah, we now have an apprenticeship program. We're working all regenerative systems, no-till systems. And we're excited about this year's new permanent beds. That's kind of our latest addition to our farm. So I'm happy to be coming to you from my real office.
That's amazing, Mark. I love it. I'm experimenting putting up some permanent beds on my place too. So I'm looking forward to see how they roll and how they go. Tell me about what are you sitting in right now? What's behind you? What's beside you?
So right now, our first planting of our beets and carrots. Mm-hmm. And then right beyond them are our first planting of spring brassicas. We have our kohlrabi, some bok choy, Napa cabbage, watermelon radishes, and some other radishes as well.
That's really cool. And what about what's your growing season like there?
We're 6A. We're pretty much seasonal, so we can start breaking ground in April, and our first seeding happens in April. Other than what we get started with onions in February in the greenhouse. Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting as time goes on, our season gets extended through the climate, and we're able to have crops growing longer and harvests go longer into the fall. So
Mhm.
just kales and I've been moving our and lettuces. I've been moving our winter squash seeding because of the heat we've been having to harvest still in the beginning of September. And
Mm.
so and there was one season where it was even in August. So I've been moving that out weeks at a time every season, and now it's been about a month and a half since I've moved it in the totality for the up until this season that I've moved it. So but all the way until November, and then things start to wind down.
Okay. All right. I know it's really interesting because some people are finding that they're able to, like you said, stretch the seasons by that 1 or 2 month with cold frames or hoop houses. And some people are finding they're actually able to grow sometimes right through the seasons now, some of the
Wow.
colder crops. So it's really fascinating.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
Hmm. Mark, because this is a farm that you've been a part of for 8 years. You didn't start out as a
Yeah.
farmer though, did you?
I didn't.
So
No.
how
So
did farming find you, or how did you find farming?
yeah. So I was actually in Boston. I was there for 13 years. I went to school and then for communications, so nothing to do with agriculture. And then I ended up working at a restaurant in the south end of Boston and called Francesca's Cafe. And I fell in love with the community aspect, serving good food,
Mhm,
and just creating a space where people can come and be their human self. It's
mhm.
kind of like a watering hole of the south end. And so it was there that I thought I was serving some of the best foods, but I came to find out I was still serving some foods from some of the unsustainable systems that are in this country. And so once I started to learn that, I couldn't stop learning it. And so right away I helped get some better foods into the restaurant, um, just as far as how where they're sourced. And then from there, I realized that I needed to take the next steps to learn how to be a farmer. Essentially, I read the book Omnivore's
Wow.
Dilemma, and that kind of spearheaded me forward to. And since then, that was back in 2008. Since then, I have yet put down the books and the conversations and what I'm doing. And so, yeah, from there, I took the next steps to get me to where I am now.
That's neat. And tell me what unsustainable farming means to you. Like what
I
was not
guess
sustainable about it, where
I
you're
guess some of
sourcing
the
from?
yeah, some of the unsustainable is it's supporting where food is grown, where the soil is considered a medium. You have to
Mhm.
add in your herbicides, your pesticides, your heavy fertilizers just to get your plants to grow. And if you stop adding any of those things, then the soil just becomes a dead piece of matter. And so the degradation of the soil, and and also going further with that, um, labor and the treatment of farm workers and migrant workers. And so just bringing these things together um, is really, and then also what ends up happening with the nutrition of the food.
Mm.
And so learning about, the best ways to get all of the nutrients inside the food that we eat, and what practices help that. So it's kind of
Mhm.
a big whole encompassing. Yeah.
Yeah. How is it for you to source different food to bring into it was a cafe that you're
So
working at, the
it
restaurant?
was really challenging, and it's one of the reasons that I realized I needed to go be part of this mission,
Mm.
um, is because that systemic challenge is just so prevalent. It's hard for a restaurant, and I don't mean to put down the restaurants because I understand it. Like it's hard for a restaurant to source food that's grown in the way that we're growing, like here on the farm,
Yeah.
because of the cost. Um, and and I think we're heading in the right direction. I know of uh, big ag that's heading into regenerative agriculture and various analysis that's taken place within some of these conventional farms to help the farmers switch over so that we can be growing more nutritious and better for the earth food.
Mm. So how did you start to learn about farming? What were the first steps that you take? Because I think that can be pretty overwhelming sometimes. And a lot of people find themselves thinking, oh, I want to be a farmer. And that's a true story now for many generations, not just people who are not just what we call young farmers, but people who are moving into their third or fourth career and what they would consider retirement, and they actually want to move into farming. So where did you take your
So
first steps?
yeah, it was intimidating. It was an intimidating understanding. It was almost like I started to feel like I was a wannabe, and I was like, it's not that I want to be it. I just felt it inside that I needed to pursue this, especially coming from the city. I was always finding myself in all the parks, and I was living in Jamaica Plain. I was always at the pond, and so I started helping out at various community gardens and just speaking with people who have been gardening for a while. And then I would go to the farmer's market in Copley thinking I was going to go and ask a farmer, how did you become a farmer? It was like this, I didn't know what that was. And every time I'd go, I'd chicken out. And I ended up buying a cookie. I wouldn't even buy a piece of produce. And I was like, I didn't do it. But finally, this one moment, I was able to go volunteer on a farm, Waltham Community Fields here in Mass. And I was able to go and ask a farmer, how did you become a farmer? And she said, I was a farmer's apprentice. And it was like, eureka, okay, you just gave me this key. And that day was beautiful out in the fields, and a big storm came in, and it was very impactful for my journey. And so I went back home and I found Caretaker Farm in Williamstown, Mass through my search. And I just completely immersed myself in their program and what I needed to do in order to actually even apply. And one of the things I did the following year was I actually came here part-time 2 days a week here at Saltbox when Ben, the owner, was just starting the farm back up. It was his second year, and I was a farmhand 2 days a week while I was still running the restaurant and I was managing the condo building as well. So I was just like gung-ho about seeing, am I romanticizing farming? Like is what I'm about to do, something that I really should do? Like this is kind of scary. But I came here and I hurt and I was sweaty and I was dirty, and I had to ride my bike here and ride it back, take the commuter rail, and I fell in love with it. I was like, all right, you do want to do this. And it was just enough to put on my resume. And by that November, I was sitting on the dining room table at Caretaker Farm, having an interview and yeah, for an apprenticeship. And then I was accepted.
Wow. And what was it about that farm that drew you to wanting to work with them?
I think the biggest part to it is the community aspect. Mm-hmm. It's 275 CSA families, and I being at the restaurant, like I didn't want to leave the community. Like that was the biggest part about being in the restaurant, and so that was a huge draw. And then just everything that they were doing with their CSA, with their apprenticeship program, the amount that I knew I was going to learn, because it's very outlined, and they had all aspects of things I wanted to learn: raising cows, raising pigs, raising goats, raising chickens, growing all the produce. And so it had everything that I felt I wanted to learn in that one space.
And what was it about their practices that attracted you to working with them?
All organic practices, no spraying, just not even fertilizers added. It's very compost based. And the fact that it was one of the first, I think, 4 CSAs in the country. And Sam and Elizabeth Smith, the founders, the elders on the farm, they're still there. They're in their 80s. They're, biking in France and still helping out on the farm. There's just so much health that happens in that community. And Don is my farming mentor, Don Zazada. He was at the food project here in Lincoln, Mass for 7 years actually, before going there, and his wife Bridget. And I knew that they were a community of teachers, of mentors that I wanted to go and be a part of.
That's amazing. And so now you found yourself at Saltbox, and Saltbox is really unique because you grow your own food, and it finds its way all the way on into the restaurant and on the plates of people who come in to dine. And then you also have the CSA aspect of it, right?
We no longer have the CSA aspect.
Okay, actually, I did read that.
But one of the reasons is the owner is a chef, and so part of all the wonderful things that happen here is tying the farm to everything happening at the restaurant, because it's not only just a farm to table restaurant, but it's also catering. And so, and these guys do amazing catering, weddings, parties, all sorts of events. Really, really well done. They highlight the food coming from the farm, the food coming from other farms. And they also have the brewery. So we grow hops for the microbrewery in the restaurant as well. And so it's really kind of bringing a focus back to the farm to table movement here on the farm. And so, I mean, as a farmer, I still need the community aspect, and I did love growing the CSA here. But now we're heading towards going to the farmers market, and I think that will be a great segue to again engage with the community.
Yeah, have you done farmers markets before?
So I did it here when I was here in 2016. So I came in 2015, right when they started I just finished 2 years of my apprenticeship program, and Ben happened to call me up and be like, "Hey, do you know anybody that needs a farm gig?" And I'm like, I just became a farmer. I'm like, yes. And so it was perfect timing. And I came back and just kind of, I had the chance to learn the land in that first season that they opened up the restaurant, and just grow directly for them. And then the second season is when I went to the farmers market for supplemental income to help continue to move the farm along into all the systems that we're into now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mark, you said something so powerful there, which is that you had time to learn the land. And I think that's something that is so profound. It's so simple and so profound at the same time, because I'm not too sure how connected we are to that, even sometimes as farmers, as we're starting out. When we're thinking it's about, I don't know, everyone has different ideas about what farming is, right? Or gardening is. And that time that it takes to learn the land is so intimate. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like for you?
Sure. So fortunately, prior to coming here in 2015, I was here in 2012. Mm-hmm. And so I had just the analysis of being here for a season, the 2 days a week, and then going to Caretaker for 2 years. And I could see, wow, it's not all the same everywhere, like simple notion, but applying it to your everyday, it's impactful. So that right off the bat, coming here, I knew I wasn't going to be in a more clay soil like Caretaker is. It's in the valley in the Berkshires in Williamstown. But instead here, it's very rocky and really sandy soil. And so right off the bat, I knew that coming in here, and spoke with my mentor and continued to speak with him for the following years. And I still go visit every year at Caretaker. But So spending that time with, what it means to be picking rocks, what it means to be adding compost, how much compost, what's our weed pressure coming off of some of the practices that Ben, as a starting farmer, being here when he inherited the land, what can I come off from there as far as future directions. And I mean, even to today, I'm thinking about this field in 2024 as I'm doing what's going on this year, as well as looking at the field. I have another field over there. They're about an acre each, of what's going on for 2023. And so that first year, I was very analytical with our soil tests, and with we have a little bit of a slope here, and just watching how all things move so that I can develop the best systems to sustain the nutrients in the soil.
That's really cool. And what about how much land are you farming there?
So it's a 10-acre farm total.
Yeah.
We have these 2 acres in vegetable production, and then we have about a half acre in an orchard. We have a quarter of an acre in hops, and then we have a few rows of grapes, and then we have a kitchen garden down by what used to be the cooking school. It's now an event space that we grow lots of herbs and flowers in.
That's awesome. And what's worked well to build your soil and to work with that sandy, rocky land that
So
you find yourself on?
right, and so it's we did go into black plastic as a mulch, if we want to call it such, which was really helpful for killing off some generations of weeds, and then also helpful to just keep the ground covered as I was trying to build up some of our other systems. We kind of had a lot of things going at once, and so having the grapes coming up, having asparagus coming up, having the hops growing, the orchard, the chickens. We do raise a flock of sheep each season. We also have bees, and so it was a moment of like, all right, I'm focusing on the vegetable production and then lightly on these other things. And so as I was focusing on our vegetable production and what our market was going to be, and so it started off with black plastic, with the notion that we're going to head to no-till systems. And so by 2018, we were then hitting no-till systems or I should say we were hitting low-till systems where our beds were being remade with the bed former, but we weren't tilling the beds anymore. And then adding in cover crops to hold on to water. And now we are wood chipping our pathways, and we've created basically quadrants in this field, and we're going to do it in the other field where we have 4 quadrants, and right in the middle of both of them, we're putting in these hedgerows filled with perennial herbs and flowers. We even just transplanted some sacred tobacco plants to help with soaking up some water down in an area over in the corner there. So yeah, it's been a nice flow of movement for each system. Just keep building on what we're doing and trying to not challenge ourselves, but not take on too much, so that we're successful within the season.
Right. And what kind of soil tests did you find most helpful?
So most helpful have been Logan Labs in Ohio. And it's where we're able to get some of our trace mineral readings as well, so that for example, if we have a lot of calcium in our soil, but that doesn't mean that our plants can actually uptake that calcium, or that calcium is accessible to them in the compound needed. But if you add boron, if you happen to have a boron deficiency, you could add some of those trace minerals and help the plants uptake those nutrients.
And do you use microbiology testing as well, or?
We have not gone that far yet, but we are mindfully focused on feeding our microbiology. So making sure that we have all of our irrigation set up, making sure that we're keeping things watered during these dry times, making sure we're adding lots of compost to feed all of the microbes. And so we're heavily keeping them in mind and the care for the soil, that they're really who we're feeding, so that they can
Mhm.
then hold on to the nutrients for our plants.
Yeah. What's been the most difficult part of farming?
Hmm. I think in the beginning for me, it was like getting in that driver's seat and um, working the priority lists.
Mhm.
Um, I also, and I think Ben has been amazing because he just kind of he let me get in that driver's seat, and he's running the restaurant, and I know his heart wants to be here too, as much as uh, he's a chef. He also wants to be here, and so he gets to come here once a week, and so it's really special to have him here. But being in that driver's seat and making sure, I got all of these things tended to, and I'm teaching two apprentices, either one or two apprentices a season. This season we have two full-time apprentices, and um, Maddie and Jasmine, and Maddie's a returning apprentice, and so that's really helpful as returning this season, just as far as helping to keep these priority lists going. We do a weekly task list, and we go through everything that we're going to do every morning. We do weekly field walks so that everybody's eyes are on things. We have six eyes on things, and because it's so easy to miss something with all the various components. So it's staying on top of that, and there are those days where it's 3 a.m. and I'm being woken up thinking of a seedling in the greenhouse, and is the temperature okay?
Yes, yes. So you have three of you. And is it just the three of you working all of the farm?
So it's the three of us working the farm,
Wow.
and then also Ben is here once a week, and
Mhm.
then we've been working on our volunteer program. So having various our friends, our personal friends,
Yeah.
our partners come and help us out, and then tomorrow we have Minuteman high school students coming to help out with some bed prep and wood chip spreading. We'll try to um, engage in multiple things for them. And then the other part to that volunteer program is sitting down afterwards for 20 minutes to a half an hour and just talking about food justice and food sovereignty, and
Mm,
just a think tank of because we don't know everything, but just to keep that conversation going as far
mm.
as where our food comes from, and what's going on with the systems and some of the discrepancies that are very prevalent.
Yeah. Can you tell me where your heart is at with that, with food sovereignty, and what you see working and that we can work towards and turn towards?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of leaders that are moving some of these systems that need to change, especially regenerative agriculture, and some of the origins of where it came from. And I'm trying to listen the best I can, and
Mm,
keep creating a space where we can converse about it. And
mm,
um, but I think, like, I'm happy that I'm going to the farmers market, and SNAP is accepted, and WIC, and um, I hope one day, and this is no secret to the owner, but I hope one day to start my own farm. Like,
mm.
that's in the plan, and so creating a space where it's once again a CSA where I could offer these things where the food is accessible to everybody, and what that means, as opposed to as great as it is to bring food to food pantries, but kind of get more into some of the systemic changes,
Mhm.
um, and yeah, connecting with some of the city workers who are out there doing, distributing some of this food in healthy ways. That's not taking away the pride and livelihood of people, but changing it in a way that, like, works for the farmers as well, so that we're all working together. We're not going to be somebody that's going to come and be some food savior. It's not
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. That would be another really good conversation to have with you another time to learn more about that and go deeper. But tell me what your favorite thing about farming is.
Hmm. There's so many. I think, I mean, listening to nature, listening to the movement and the wisdom, and just being able to work for her, and the
Mhm.
challenges she presents, the information she gives. We do a meditation in the field once a week, and just a moment to remind ourselves to stay centered and connect, knowing that there's a plant for all ailments of humans, and
Yeah.
just connecting with these plants in that way, and knowing that it's here for all of us, and we can all be eating nutritiously. And as we even transplanted our tobacco plant today, just calling out to calling out to nature to help us go forward in ways that are accessible to us to do so, and keep the conversation open.
Mhm.
So just being able to be a part of that is really great. It's beyond me. It's um, I know too much at this point. I couldn't do anything else but continue on.
That's really powerful. What advice would you give to new farmers who are just starting out, or people who wanted to? I guess that's two different questions. What advice would you give to new farmers, people who are actually finding themselves with land, on land? They finally got themselves there. What advice would you give those people?
I would say, um, go slow with how you build your farm. I would say try to have minimal costs initially. I know it's really fun to, want to get all of the tools and gadgets that, make farming, um, a little more efficient. But the best you can, keep it tight, and get a few systems that can get you some income, and then start adding. Like, create your plan and look at your goal, look at your 5 and 10 year goal. But in years one through five, really just build onto it slowly, and know that the seasons, they go by pretty quickly, and before you know it, you'll be adding other enterprises one on top of the other, in a manageable way.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Mark. That's probably some of the best advice out there. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I moved out here to my new little farm, I guess in the fall of 2019. And that's what my brother said too. They're like, Natalie, start small. Don't go get too far ahead of yourself. I
Yeah.
got too far ahead of myself for sure. I planted like 5,000 strawberry plants in my first year, which isn't a lot for some people, but for me, just on my own, that was a lot. So I bit off a bit
Yeah.
more than I can chew. And now I'm really seeing the value. I mean, I could see the value before, but I grew up as a farmer, and I wanted it. So there was no convincing me otherwise. So when we
Yeah.
do bite off more than we can chew, there's also different ways that it's also an opportunity to sit back and learn, and to I guess grow and harvest and cultivate the next step. So I deeply appreciate that advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, to start small. That's my biggest piece of advice too, even to gardeners, people who are just starting out to grow something in their backyard or their front yard. Just plant something you want to eat, and just pick a little place and focus on that and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I have gardeners come to me and be like, oh, like, this didn't work and this didn't work. I'm like, that's awesome. Write it down. You learned
Mm,
all these cool lessons. And they're
yeah.
like, oh yeah. I'm like, try again next year. Like, with these lessons now, apply them. Writing things down. That's another
Yes.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super powerful. So you practice regenerative agriculture. What does regenerative farming mean to you?
I feel like for me, it's having the land be tended to in a way that it's treated as life. It's
Mm,
treated as, our brothers, our sisters. We are one, and so I'm looking at this, and I think that's why I've also really enjoyed quadranting, making quadrants out of this field, and we'll be doing over there, is just bringing more, more biodiversity and life and relationship to one another, from the perennials to the annuals, for attracting beneficial insects, or like, helping navigate with the wind. And so just keeping that in the heart of it all, then everything is cared for with the same nurturing respect as we proceed.
Mm, that's cool. And so one thing I'm curious about is is Saltbox Farm certified organic?
We are not. Nope. We only do organic practices, but we are
Only
not
do.
certified.
So I'm curious about that choice.
So I have thought a lot about it during my years as an apprentice, and I've witnessed various debates about getting certified or not getting certified. Um, one of the things that I've come to is that, and I think at some point, it's still formulating my feelings on it. If I have my own farm, will I get certified? As of right now, I just feel like the farms that use chemicals and the conventional farms, maybe that their practices should be more stated, that this is what we do, as opposed to having the organic certified, and we're growing food, and changing the norm, I guess, to wait, that's grown with chemicals, instead of like, oh, that's grown organically, or and so which should I partake in, as I believe that should go forward with changing that. And so technically right now it's not my decision to make that here, though I probably could throw out my opinions about that, and discuss it with Ben, and see where we would go. But for right now, I'm still kind of in a space of seeing what's going on as we're moving forward. And yeah, that's because I don't mean any disrespect to people who are certified organic. I think there's something great with that too, and knowing that they are legally bound to also be doing these things. And I can say this is what we're doing, but I'm not legally bound to it. And then that comes into play, my integrity and growing practices.
I love the curiosity that you're sitting in, Mark. It's really powerful, because I think we all can learn from that, whether we're a farmer or a gardener or somebody who just likes to eat, right? To sit in that wonder and curiosity of what is the deeper meaning of that to me and for me, and what kind of conversations can we have about how our food is grown. So yes, there's value and validation to being certified organic or biodynamic, or the different certifications that are out there. And at the same time, having the awareness to know what to ask, and the awareness to know how food is produced and how food is grown is maybe a just as important, or maybe even more important, conversation to have with people.
Absolutely. It's challenging, just as a consumer myself, going into the grocery store and trying to make my vote. I'm voting on this piece of meat because I know it's USDA certified organic. Going to a co-op where it's not USDA certified organic, but I know it's right down the road, and that farmers, and so and then the challenges of things that aren't, and what our menu is, and what we're gonna eat. So it is, and I do think of it as voting. I talk with my partner a lot as we go in the grocery store, and we're placing our vote, and at some point, if we are going to have some meat and we are going to pay that price, then that means that we're not going to have meat the rest of the week, and this is our meat moment, for the cost, and honoring that the best we can.
Yeah, man, that gives me goosebumps. That's really powerful. Thanks for that, Mark.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I'm wondering, what is your deepest pain as a farmer?
Hmm. I think I don't want to get too far out there, but I think knowing that what I'm doing now is helping the future and that I might not see that. I most likely won't see that, but I'm doing what I can now to sow seeds to help the future of society. And listening to Mother Nature and I limit myself with some news because um, there's so much out of our controls, and so
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to resonate in peace and with smiles on the day and doing the best I can to bring what I can to today with with the hope of the future generations. I have 13 nieces and nephews,
Mm.
and just seeing what they're all going to be a part of, um, and the things that are I believe are coming, and the changes we all need, adaptations we all need to have with one another. So I think it's it's a challenge because I face it and look at it every day, but I try to transmute it, so to speak, so that I make peace with it every day as well.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your greatest joy as a farmer?
I think um, it's seeing that I actually was able to pass on this this knowledge. Seeing a former apprentice now um, running farms of their own, and and just knowing like, okay, like now they're gonna pass it on, and it's like, all right, I'm in this system that is in movement for the greater good. um, that makes sense to me, so I'm gonna keep on with that.
Mm, that's really cool. And what about what difference do you hope to make? What's the biggest difference you hope to make being a farmer?
um, I think the awareness of farm food as opposed to um, food that's in the grocery stores that are in boxes and things. The food that so many people, some of my family included, that rely upon because it's what is affordable
Yeah.
in our systems. And I think it's getting people to understand that they can move away from um, those those foods, and it takes being a part of a community. It takes opening up to talking with farmers and seeing what can be done. It's not about I mean, for me, it's not about the bottom line. It's about what can we do together to
Hmm.
make things better for each other. Like, what can we do?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't have those answers, but let's put our heads together.
Yes, yes. I'm curious about the regenerative farming piece. Um, because and regenerative is agriculture is a term that's really has a lot of momentum right now, right? It has a lot of momentum in a lot of different spaces. And so I'm curious, you told us what it meant to you. And at the same time, I'm wondering how, as a consumer, what can a consumer, what questions does a consumer need to ask when they're looking at purchasing regeneratively grown food, when there are no regulations, when there are no, there's not a lot of transparency around it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also has to do with climate and
Mhm.
being an earthling, bringing us all down to our basic common denominators, that we're earthlings together, and this is our earth, and we need to support one another to maintain being able to be here. Uh,
Mhm.
and so I think asking the questions of what your practices are, as far as caring for the soil. I think the degradation of the soil leads to further climate challenges. If we think of like carbon sequestering and just having a soil that's bare and dead. And so I think as a consumer, just understanding that we need to care for our soil, we need to care for where we grow our food so that it's alive and so that it can sustain us and sustain our societies going forward.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And Mark, you have been farming for how many years now?
So now it's been about a decade. I'm coming on a decade.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
One woman who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, she's now defined new farmers in her own mind as anyone who's been farming for under 10 years, which I think makes a lot of sense, having been a new farmer a couple times in a couple different ways myself. And I'm wondering, what do you do really well as a farmer? Like, what's your farming superpower where you're like, I got this?
Well, it's funny. It's because the challenge of keeping our priority lists going, it's become my superpower because I'm so adamant on making sure that I'm on top of it. And so it's the diligence of making sure we're thinning our carrots exactly when we need to, or we're flaming right after that seeding 2 days after, or we're making sure we're irrigating and keeping my crew with me right on task with. And it's all things that I've learned to do as well at Caretakers. We all have our notebooks in our back pockets. We're all checking off our list throughout the day. We're all sharing everything that we see. The conversation keeps moving. And I think keeping this place moving in those tasks together, like the three of us, we're a tripod. And yeah, I think that's like, I feel like I do. I've got that.
So where is your growth edge as a farmer? What are you most challenged with? And what are you most curious about learning more about to grow you into a better and more efficient and more mindful farmer?
Well, these no-till systems and permanent beds, they are new. And so I've used the off season to connect with other farmers, to watch workshops, the NOFA, Northeast Organic Farm Association, winter conference, various books. And so here I am, you play virtual farm when you're in the off season and you're, making your crop plans and you're making your field plans and you're putting things out. And then when you're here, you have your blueprint, and then you realize, you get your eraser and you're like, wait a minute, no, this needs to be moved over here. This needs to be moved over here. And then you're like, okay, what's up with slugs? Like what's up with, the leaf miner and, things that I haven't had to deal with in specific times because I'm coming off of black plastic. Temperature, various mulches, living mulch. We're trying sweet alyssum. So right now, I feel like I bit off what I can chew, but my mouth is full, but I can still chew it.
Yeah.
With all these various experiments, and it takes the continued conversations to be like, okay, this is working, or I foresee this not working, or and then looking towards 2023 in that field over there, and bring in all the things that we've learned here over there. So it's it's awesome, and there's so much, and there's so many different things that you can apply, and you can listen to various farmers who swear by leaves, or swear by wood chips, or swear by silage tarps, or swear by cover crops, and that also depends on their land, their soil, their slope, their situation. But yeah, it really is trying to figure out what works for us in this
Yeah.
land, using a lot of these things that people have tried out.
That's cool. And Mark, what do you most want people to know about farming?
Um, for the most part, I think one of the biggest things about farming is that a community around a farm is ideal. Having students, we have a high school right across the road, and we used to have the students come before COVID 3 times a week. A group of students, instead of their gym class, they would come here, and you know, they would get exercise, they would get knowledge, they would get exposure to the farm. Uh, Elderly or retired folks that are of a community, like you are 100% useful on a farm. Like, talk with your farmer, because there's a task that would be amazing to have help on. And moving a farm, it does take a community, and I don't want to, and I wouldn't want to do it any other way. So I think figuring out a way that you could bring your gifts or your talents, or go and get your hands dirty, and just open yourself up with nature, and has, just your own personal time, but get connected with a farm, because for the most part, I feel pretty confident saying that farmers want that. So
We do.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mark.
Yes, thank you so much. This has
Big love.
been awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been really good to connect with you. And I appreciate all of what you share on social media so much, both from a heart and soil perspective, and because we're really about amplifying all the amazing ways that we can live in collaboration and live in following nature's wisdom. And I think you do a really good job of modeling that for us. And then you also share a lot of what's working on your farm and what you're doing. So I think it really helps people who like to eat that might not be able to get to a farm connect with where their food might be coming from, or where their food, where they would like their food to be coming from. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and share deep gratitude for the way you show up. I am
Nice.
very thankful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'd like to say too, like, in that way of gratitude, like, Ben and the Saltbox team and everything that we're doing here is, it allows me to be able to continue growing out here. Like, basically everything that I bring to the table with Ben, his heart is like, yes, that's amazing, do it. Like, everything that we're doing here, he is 100% on board, and just so happy with how the farm is. I'm just so grateful to be here, and for the time that I'm here, and the time still coming that I'm going to be here. And I just wanted to say that part too, because that's such a huge part. And being here in 2012, Ben inspired me to take that leap from 13 years of living in the city, and
Yes.
because he had just done it. He was a chef in Boston, and then he came here. So it
Wow.
was very, very inspiring, and it just means so much to be here and have been able to do all that I've done here with him. So it's
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you for presenting that, because I think you can see that, and you talked about the importance of community, and also through your posts and through just the way Saltbox presents, you can feel that embodiment of community, and that embodiment of holding a space for growth, and a space for flourishing, and a space for learning, and for coming together. So thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. And thank you, Heart and Soil. I mean, it's such a beautiful magazine. I'm thrilled and honored to be a part of it. It's really special. So yeah, thank you.
Joined us for that conversation and interview. If you haven't subscribed to Heart and Soil magazine yet, head over to heartandsoilmagazine.com. Click on that subscribe button and join us. You make yourself an amazing day, and I'm really grateful you're part of our community.